introducing, and thank you, Paul and Derrick and the organization, for inviting me to speak in Canada. For me, it's really an adventure to bring new stuff into a new world where I see so much European influence and mixed with a global influence, with all the Asian input here, and brought together to a tremendous culture which I really admire and I find inspiring for myself. So it's exciting to talk to you, to Canadian people, about a work we have done in Europe in the last 20 years, and I hope we will have a fine meeting right now. The theme is going on existential fundamental motivations, and I want to give you first an introduction to meaning, and want to start with an experience I once had with Viktor Frankl. He came along showing me a little drawing which he had come across by chance in a newspaper. With his bright spirit, he was always prone to combine casual happenings with deeper insights, a source of his humor and wit. Well, this drawing showed an arrow shot on a plain wall where it was fixed. A man with a bow in his left was standing at the wall painting the signs of a target around the arrow, concentric circles which created a center around it. Frankl commented the drawing by saying, "Look at that. This picture shows exactly what is not meant by meaning. This man is creating meaning about what he wants. But meaning is not arbitrary, nor is it a construction. Meaning is based on given facts and therefore cannot be deliberately changed. It cannot be given, it must be found, teared out from reality." In fact, the context of existential analysis and logotherapy, in this context, meaning is understood as a correlation of two given facts: the demand of the situation, on the one hand, and one's understanding of oneself. For instance, of what one thinks and feels, what one is or should be. The demand of the situation for me is, as I understand it right now, to find out what you might be interested in concerning existential motivation, and to correlate this with my experience, my view and investigation with that what I find to be important on this behalf. This is my meaning. Yours may be the following, to follow the presentation, or if there is anything else coming into your mind, to correlate this with the ongoing in the situation, proving what is of higher importance for you right now. Thus, meaning is conceived as a gestalt, emerging in the midst of the inner and outer reality. This is what I intend to line out here. That personal meaning is a complex achievement of the human spirit, or of this noetic potential, as Frankl preferred to call it, to make a clear distinction to the religious understanding of the term meaning, of the term spirit. spirit, this non-physical power underlying our conscience, our mind, our sensing, our ability of feeling, and even our body, as Merleau-Ponty showed. The nature of the spirit is dialogical. As dialogical force, it brings up a continuous confrontation with the things around us, those within and those outside of us. The dialogical interaction lays ground for a basic prerequisite of existence: the detecting what is possible in the midst of the given facts. All of that which is not yet fixed represents the existential field waiting to be realized. Through our spirit, we are directed toward this part of reality where we realize what is waiting for us and therefore challenging us, claiming us, needing us, inviting us. This part of reality is our existential actuality, is our future. Is that what has to become reality through us? The possibilities in this world are our potential. They are the room for existence. That what is possible, not that what is given, but that what is still open, that is the room of existence. Existence means, in a practical sense, to have a chance to change things to their better, to experience the worthful and to avoid or to eliminate the worse. Having possibilities gives us the direction to which orient ourselves. The practical keys to meaning Frankl has given a general key for finding meaning or sense. He described the proper activity as an attitude towards the world. I'm citing Frankl. He's saying, we must perform a kind of Copernican revolution and give the question of the meaning of life an entirely new twist. To wit, it is life itself that asks question of man. It is not up to man to question, rather, he should recognize that he is questioned by life. He has to respond by being responsible, and he can answer to life only by answering for his life. End of quote. This attitude is in fact a phenomenological attitude. Phenomenologically, that means a pure openness of the mind without any personal interest coming in between. Pure looking for the need or essence of the situation, letting one reached or even captured by it. Seen from a more psychological point of view, we can describe the key for a fulfilled existence in finding a way of living with inner consent to what we do. Consent to what we commit or omit. In other words, to live with inner consent means that there is a continuous activity. It consists in a double dialogue. The one addressed to the outside is following the question, what is appealing me? What is attracting or challenging me? Where am I needed? What do I want to do in this situation, etc.? For instance, here, it is what I hear interesting for me, challenging me, talking to me in a way so that I see what I can do with it. If this is not the case, I would say I'm probably not in the outer dialogue. The other side of the dialogue runs inwardly. Whatever I decide to do, I cannot leave myself aside if I want to experience meaning. We are therefore always living in the question if we do agree with our decision. To be more concrete, this inner agreement is a process of contacting the deepest feelings which are arising in ourselves in any situation. We have to take them for serious. I'm not speaking about anxiety, mood, delights, or the like. They have also their meaning. But here I'm speaking about the most inward movement. If these deepest emotions are corresponding to our intentions and plans, then we are living the inner consent. Our inwardly felt or spoken yes. With such an agreement with what we do, we are standing by ourselves, realizing ourselves by fulfilling the corresponding demand of the situation of the other, or of the other. This process can be taken as the shortest description of existential analysis and possibly of existential psychotherapy in general, to help man to find a way of living where he can give his inner consent to his own actions. A more scientific definition to give a glimpse to the more academic approach about scientific definition of existential analysis would run this way. It is a phenomenological, personal psychotherapy with the aim of enabling a person to experience his life freely at the spiritual and emotional levels, to experience. This is the impression side of life. Freely, this means with not with fixed emotions, but with emotions that can correspond to this actual situation. To arrive at authentic decisions and to come to a responsible way of dealing with himself and the world around. Well, let me now come to the four fundamental conditions of fulfilled existence. If we scrutinize phenomenologically the themes we are concerned with throughout our life, they turn out to be an offspring of four fundamental realities. This was the main empirical work and theoretical result of our phenomenological studies of the last 20 years. As spiritual beings, here again we have the notion of the spirit underlying body, mind, conscience, sensing, feeling. As spiritual beings, we are therefore essentially confronted with these four fundamental realities, with the world, the things around us, in its factuality and potentiality. We are essentially confronted not only with the given facts and the possibilities which which are given free within the facts or in between the facts. We are also confronted with life, with its network of relationship and its corresponding feelings. We are confronted with another fact, a third fact, which takes a lot of time and maturing and growing, the being oneself as a unique, incomparable, autonomous person. Nobody is like me. I'm different. How can I live in a community? How can I be in a relationship, being different? How can I justify being different, and so on? We will go on each in a deeper, subsequently in a deeper way. And there's a fourth reality we are confronted with the fact of having a future. We are standing in a wider context. We have a future which we have to shape and which we are shaping, willingly or not. This is the aspect of development through one's activity. Human existence is based on these fundamental realities. They are the four cornerstones of existence, according to the modern existential analytical theory. Yalom, 1980, was already describing quite similar fundamental existential realities. In a typically existentialistic language, he was putting his findings into negative terms. He was speaking about groundlessness, death, loneliness, and meaning or absurdity. Nevertheless, they correspond largely to our four existential realities, and on this table I try to make a correlation between Yalom's findings and our findings. Groundlessness implies a world with its supporting structure. If this supporting structure, which is holding me in the world, physically or in relationship, etc., if this ground is gonna be lost, then we fell into a groundlessness, which is the source of anxiety. Death, having the fact that, as Heidegger was pointing out so deeply in his I don't know in English the term, in his book about being, time and the meaning of, I don't yeah. Well, in his central work, he was writing about the fact that our existence is directed toward a death coming up in any existence. Having to deal with this fact of being mortal means having a life, as we can say in a positive way, that we have a life to deal with. A life which means that we grow, we are underlying temporality, we are maturing, and we are dying a lifelong time, we are dying, and at the end there is a final dying. Yalom is talking about loneliness as a main deal in our existence, that we have to overcome loneliness and that lots of our activities are dealing with that fact. Loneliness emerges only from the uniqueness of the person, from the fact that we are different one from the other, that we have our own, which is which is similar but not equal, not the same with the other. And meaning relates to the contextual understanding of one's own existence and of one's activity, aiming at a worthwhile future ahead of us. This corresponds to meaning, this context, this understanding of where I am standing in, which is the broader horizon where I'm living in. According to Frankl's tradition, our cornerstones of existence are positively formulated and not tragically from the beginning. They can nevertheless be called existential for one central reason. They are claiming our own inner position towards them. They are asking our decision how to relate to them, thus challenging our activity to change and work on our human reality until we can give our inner consent. A consent which we give no longer merely to what we do, but also to what we live in. There is, of course, always the hazard to fail, to founder, and to fall into groundlessness, emotional death, loneliness, and the feeling of absurdity. The tragedy is pertaining in human existence. But these cornerstones offer, on the other hand, a chance to relate to and to entrust ourselves to their structures and contents, which in their depth are leading to a spiritual layer behind them, underneath or above all human reality. Being the structure of human existence, these realities are basically involved in every motivation and can therefore also be called the four fundamental existential motivations. The fact of dealing with these underlying structures of all which is challenging us, which is offering us that what we call existential life, full life, which is attracting and absorbing our forces. This fact that all these facts go phenomenologically together on four realities. This fact is giving rise to the fact that it is underlying all motivation. Then any motivation implicates inner consent and agreement besides cognition, feeling, and meaning. As existential basics, they are of importance, of course, in all relations where the person stands in the center. You need these basic existential cornerstones or motivations in education as well as in pastoral counseling, in prevention of diseases, in coaching, in organizational structures, etc. Wherever you have to deal with the human person, they are of importance. Let me now come to these existential motivations, beginning with the first. The first condition arises from the simple fact that I am here at all, that I am in the world. But where to go from here? Let me introduce you a little bit in this thinking just for a minute. Can I cope with my being there? Do I understand it? I'm there. And there's an old German saying from the 12th century, goes in free translation, I don't know where I am from. I don't know where to. I wonder why I'm so glad. With all this ignorance, how can I be glad? Not knowing why I'm here, not even knowing for certain that I am here, and so on. I'm there is me. In a way, we have a notion about that. But how is that even possible? Questioning this seemingly self-evident fact can go to great depth once I go into it. Aristotle was saying that this is the beginning of philosophy. And if I really think about it, I realize I cannot truly comprehend this. My existence appears like an island in an ocean of ignorance and of connections that surpass me. The most adequate and traditional attitude towards such an incomprehensible thing is one of astonishment. Basically, I can only be astonished that I am there at all. I cannot understand it, but I can be astonished, which is the way we can touch that fact, not grasp it. But I'm there, which puts the fundamental question of existence. I am. Can I be? Can I claim my place in this world under the conditions and with the possibilities I have? This demands three things: protection, space, and support. And we can ask ourselves existentially, do I enjoy protection, acceptance? Do I feel at home somewhere? Do I have enough space for being there? This is maybe more a European question than an American question. Do I have enough space for being there? Where do I find support in my life? If this is not the case, the result will be restlessness, insecurity, and fear, anxiety. But if I do have these three things, I will be able to feel trust in the world and confidence in myself, maybe even faith in God. The sum of these experiences of trust is the fundamental trust. The trust in whatever I feel is the last support in my life. But in order to be there, it is not enough to find protection, space, and support and just to get it. I also have to size these conditions, to make a decision in their favor, to accept them. My active part in this fundamental condition of being there is to accept the positive sides and to endure the negative ones. To accept means to be ready to occupy the space, to rely on the support, and to trust the protection. In short, to be there and not to flee. To endure means the force to let be whatever is difficult, menacing, or unalterable, menacing or unalterable, and to support what cannot be changed. This idea is expressed in the word subject, in the sense of not independent, to be a subject. On the other hand, these conditions are reliable, solid, and steady. To let them be, to accept them as given, is only possible if I can be at the same time. Therefore, to accept means to let each other be, because there is still enough space for me, and the circumstances do not menace me anymore. If this is not the case, psychodynamics take over the guidance in the form of coping reactions to secure life. Each fundamental motivation has 4 types of reactions. Just in brief, a basic reaction type, here it is the avoidance or flight, a paradoxical reaction type, or an activism, which would be overactivity like fighting against bacteria and so on. Or each fundamental level of existence has its own aggression type. Here it is the type of hate. And each has a type of a reflex of freezing or paralyzation or imitation of death. Here it is denial and pretending to non-existent, to be non-existent, to hold the breathing. If these coping reactions do not suffice, fear and anxiety are arising. So this is the first layer, the first existential reality, to be here, followed by the question, I am asked, just by being, I am asked, what can I do to ensure my being, to continue my being? Can I really be? And the main ability I have is this, I can do something, and just accepting and enduring is the most basic ability I have to post myself in this world. The second fundamental condition for a fulfilled existence, once we have our space in the world, it can be filled with life. Simply being there is not enough for a human person. We want our existence to be good, since it is more than a mere fact. It has a pathic dimension, which means that it does not simply happen, but that I experience and suffer or enjoy my life, my being here. Being alive means to cry and to laugh, to experience joy and suffering, to go through pleasant and unpleasant things, to be lucky or unlucky, and to experience worth and worthlessness. As much as I can be happy, as deeply can I suffer. The amplitude of emotionality is equal in both directions, whether this suits me or not. Therefore, I am confronted with the fundamental question of life. I am alive. Do I really like this fact that I have emotions, that I have feelings, that I have joy and suffering which belong together? Do I like this fact? Is it good to be there? Is it good to participate in this life? Is it good that I'm alive? It is not only strain and suffering that can take away the joy of life. It may as well be the shallowness of daily life and the negligence of one's lifestyle that make life stale. In order to size my life, to love it, I need three things: relationship, time, and closeness. Do I have relationships? I may ask myself. Relationships in which I feel closeness, for which I spend time, and I like to spend time, and in which I experience community. What do I take time for? To take time for something means to give a part of one's life, to spend part of my life with someone or something. Can I feel close and maintain closeness to things or plants, animals, and people? Can I admit the closeness of someone else? Many questions. If relationships, closeness, and time are lacking, longing will arise, then coldness, and finally depression. But if these three conditions are fulfilled, I experience myself as being in harmony with the world and with myself, and I can sense the depth of life. These experiences form the fundamental value, the most profound feeling for the value of life. In each experience, this fundamental value is touched upon. It colors the emotion and affects and represents your yardstick of anything we might feel to be of worth. Still, it is not enough to have relationship, to have time and closeness. My own consent, my active participation is asked for. I size life, engage in it when I turn to other people, to things, to animals, intellectual work, or to myself, whatever. When I go towards it, get close, get into touch, or pull it towards me. This will make life vibrate within me, this getting close, this turning to something. If life is to make me more freely, my consent to being touched is necessary. Well, if this does not happen, again, psychodynamic coping reactions are coming up. The main is regression. To go to bed and to tear the cover over the head. You don't want to get into touch with this cold world if you don't have relationship, if you don't have something where you like to spend time, if you don't have experienced closeness. Activism is kind, for instance, of overprotection or a life of achievement. The typical aggression is fury, rage, not hate. It's another type of aggression, which does not lead to destruction, but to shake the other for pertaining a good relationship. Resignation is already the halfway paralyzed reaction of feigned death. If these reactions cannot neutralize the problem or loss, again, we have depression, which is arising. While this second reality we have to deal with during our entire life is the fact that we are living and that we are put into a time frame, and that our life is going and growing with its own laws and brings us to finally to a physical death. And to come along with this fact, where death is only one side, one pole, to come along with this fact, with this positive aspect of being living, this needs the exchange, the come into touch and to have the notion about relationship, time and closeness, these basic elements to stand through and to bring to a fulfilled end the fact of being alive. The third fundamental condition for a fulfilled existence, let me come to that. As pleasant as this emotional swinging may be, it is still not sufficient for a fulfilling existence. In spite of my being related to life and to people, I am aware of my being separate, different. There is a singularity that makes me an I and distinguishes me from everybody else. I realize that I am on my own, that I have to master my existence myself, and that basically I am alone and may even be solitary. But besides there is so much more that it is equally singular. The diversity, beauty, and uniqueness in all of this makes me feel respect. In the midst of this world of singularities, uniqueness, I discover myself unmistakably. I am with myself and I am given to myself. This is a fact. I am given to myself. I have also responsibility for myself. This puts me before the fundamental question of being a person. I myself, may I be like this? Do I feel free to be like this? Do I have the right to be what I am and to behave as I do? To be and to behave. Do I have the right? Am I justified? This is the plane of identity, of knowing oneself and of ethics, morality. In order to succeed here, it is necessary to have experienced three things: attention, justice, and appreciation. I was strongly reminded to that when I was hearing to Arun Gandhi yesterday. He used the same words, and I think he had a fourth term too he used for respecting people. By whom am I seen is a question. We have to ask ourselves, look at me. Children are asking, look at me, what I'm doing. By whom was I seen? By whom am I seen now? Who is considering my uniqueness and respecting my boundaries? Are people respecting my boundaries? Do people justice to me? For what am I appreciated? For what can I appreciate myself? Just a couple of questions to give you an idea of what is going on this level. If these experiences are missing, solitude will be the result. Hysteria as well as a need to hide behind the shame. If, on the contrary, these experiences have been made, I will find myself, find my authenticity, my relief, and my self-respect. The sum of these experiences builds one's own worth, the profoundest worth of what identifies my own self at its core. In order to be able to be myself, to be oneself, it is not enough to simply experience attention, justice, and appreciation. I also have to say yes to myself. This requires my active participation to look at other people, to encounter them, and at the same time to delimitate myself and to stand by my own, but to refuse what does not correspond to me. Encounter and regret are the two means by which we can live our authenticity without ending up in solitude. Encounter and regret. Encounter represents the necessary bridge, makes me find my own I in the you. Thus, I create for myself the appreciation requisite for feeling entitled to be what I am. Coping reactions go in that way, that we go into distance to ourselves or to others. This is a basic hysteric reaction, for instance. An activity or activism of coping reaction is stubborn. An aggressive type is indignation, annoyance, anger, reproach, and a freezing reaction is dissociation, dividing and splitting. The fourth fundamental condition of existence, if I can be there, love life and find myself therein, the conditions are fulfilled for the fourth fundamental condition of existence. The recognition of what my life is all about. It does not suffice to simply be there and to have found oneself. In a sense, we have to transcend ourselves if we want to find fulfillment and to be fruitful. Otherwise, we would live as if in a house where nobody ever visits. Thus, the transience of life puts before us the question of the meaning of our existence. I am there. For what is it good? For this, three things are needed: a field of activity, a structural context, and a value to be realized in the future. Questions are the like: is there a place where I feel needed, where I can be productive? Do I see and experience myself in a larger context that provides structure and orientation to my life? Is there anything that should still be realized in my life? If this is not the case, the result will be a feeling of emptiness, frustration, even despair, and frequently addiction. If, on the contrary, these conditions are met, I will be capable of dedication and action and, finally, of my own form of religious belief. The sum of these experiences add up at the meaning of life and leads to a sense of fulfillment. If man fails systematically to reach meaning, his coping reactions are provisional attitudes towards life, or idealization, or fanaticism, or aggressive games or cynicism, maybe nihilism. Disorders on this level mainly lead towards addiction. But it does not suffice to have field of activity, to have one's place within a context, or to know of values to be realized in the future. Instead, this phenomenological attitude is needed, which we were speaking about at the beginning. This attitude of openness, represents the existential access to meaning in life, that dealing with the questions put before me in each situation. What does this hour want from me? How shall I respond? Is the main question. The meaningful thing is not only what I can expect from life, but in accordance with the dialogical structure of existence, it is equally important what life wants from me and what the moment is expecting from me. This is equally important, not only what I want, but what I could and should do now also for others, as well as for myself. My active part in this attitude of openness is to bring myself into agreement with the situation, to examine whether what I am doing is really a good thing for the others, for myself, for the future, for my environment. If I act accordingly, my existence will be fulfilled. We define meaning as the most valuable possibility of the given situation. Existential meaning is therefore that what is possible here and now on the basis of facts and reality. What is possible for me, may it be what I need now, or what is the most pressing, valuable, or interesting now. To define and redefine this continually is an extremely complex task for which we possess an inner organ of perception capable to reduce this complexity to livable proportions. This is the sensing and also the moral conscience. Besides this existential meaning, there is an ontological meaning. This is the overall meaning in which I find myself and which does not depend on me. The existential meaning depends on me, if I am finding it and fulfilling it or doing it. The ontological is given. It is the philosophical and religious meaning, that of the Creator. I can perceive it in divination and in faith. I would like to end my presentation with a story that Viktor Frankl used to tell and that illustrates in a simple way the importance of the ontological meaning for understanding life. It was at the time when the cathedral in Chartres was being built, the Gothic time. A traveler came along the way and saw a man sitting on the roadside cutting a stone. The traveler asked him, astonished, what he was doing there. "Don't you see, I'm cutting stones," was his answer. Nonplussed, the traveler continued on his way. Around the next bend, he saw another man also cutting stones. Again, he stopped and asked the same question. "I'm cutting cornerstones," was the reply. Shaking his hand, our man traveled on. After a while, he met a third man who was sitting in the dust and cutting stones just as the others had been. Resolutely, he walked upon him and asked, "Are you also cutting cornerstones?" The man looked up at him, wiped the sweat from his brow and said, "I'm building a cathedral."